I'm John Batchelor. The North Korean hack of Sony films leading to war of words between the President of the United States and whatever is the spokesperson for North Korea, now threatening to attack the mainland, the White House, the DOD, indiscriminate attack, because the U.S. has said that it will answer in proportion in a time and place. Gordon Chang joins my colleague Thaddeus McCotter at WJR. Thaddeus is the author of Liberty Risen most recently, The Ultimate Triumph of Libertarian Republicans. But now we have to reason how the game of risk is played at Christmas time. Gordon Chang of Forbes.com joins us. Gordon, the news today is that North Korea went dark. Well, it's always dark, but it lost its internet connection. After the witticisms about didn't pay its Verizon bill, we get into speculating why and how. My focus here is China. How does China gain or lose from this episode? Good evening to you, Gordon.
Good evening, John, and good evening, Thaddeus. I think China has a lot to lose because China was complicit in North Korea's hacking of Sony. The North Koreans were actually probably in China from where this attack started. And, of course, the Chinese IP addresses were used in this attack, which means that Beijing knew about it because all of the attacks had to cross the Great Firewall. And, of course, all of the data that was exfiltrated from Sony, more than 100 terabytes, also crossed the Great Firewall. Now, what's happened is I believe the United States was behind this attack, and if I'm right, what has occurred is that the United States has used China's telecom backbone to attack China's only military ally, which is North Korea. And the Chinese are probably thinking right now that we have violated their sovereignty. Now, I don't buy that argument, but that's the way the Chinese are thinking. And right now, at least in the North Korean eyes, the Chinese probably look pretty weak, that we have, as I said, crossed their Great Firewall. What we have done is use their telecommunications backbone, and we have, as the Chinese might say, humiliated them.
Thaddeus?
Gordon, why would the communist Chinese regime in the first place have allowed North Korea to use their infrastructure to engage in this attack on the United States?
That's an excellent question, and I think that essentially it's for the same reasons that China has permitted North Korea to exist, especially over the last 20 years, because the North Koreans keep the rest of the region off balance, especially the South Koreans and the Japanese. And, of course, every time that the North Koreans act up and do something belligerent, Washington goes to Beijing and asks for China's help. Well, the Chinese, being ruthlessly pragmatic, extract concessions from us. So I think that the leaders in Beijing find North Korea, although to be annoying from time to time, are nonetheless very useful in their larger foreign policy goals.
Puzzle, Gordon. Here at end of year, does China want a flap? Does Xi Jinping gain from this? There seems to be, what you'd have to say, questions about his leadership, the continuity of the regime change in Beijing. As we know, there are questions in Pyongyang. This is a puzzle to me, why they would give the go-ahead for North Korea to behave in such a fashion. The president says it's vandalism, but it's a disturbance in the Xi Jinping regime.
Well, you know, China, of course, has cyber-attacked American companies and has taken vast amounts of data. Some estimates are as $475 billion a year American companies have lost in intellectual property theft, much of it, most of it by cyber means, and most of the cyber thefts by China. So it's a big chunk of change each and every year. And I think that essentially the Chinese and the North Koreans see themselves really on the same page on this. Now, this is a policy that Xi Jinping, the current ruler, has inherited. And so what he's just doing is continuing. But I don't see that he's gotten very much from this because, as I mentioned, you know, the only way to get to North Korea's internet is through the Chinese telecommunications backbone. And what we have done is we've broken down the doors without permission and now are actually taking down North Korea, and China looks helpless. So this is not good for Xi Jinping, either in the eyes of his North Korean buddies or, more importantly, in the eyes of Chinese generals and admirals and senior Chinese leaders.
I want to flag those admirals just a moment. Chinese military is building a base, we're told, at Nanjing Islands, near the disputed Senkaku Islands, uninhabited. This, according to the South China Morning Post. This base is new, Gordon, and it's said to strengthen China's air defense identification zone, the one they unilaterally extended earlier this year. And the question here is, this looks like Chinese aggression against Japan. Will it be read that way for the new year?
Oh, certainly in Japan they will, because this will allow China to challenge Japanese control of the Senkaku Islands, which the Chinese now claim and call the Diaoyus. And this is going to really up the cost for Japan to defend those islands. And clearly, as you pointed out, this also gives the Chinese better ability to actually enforce its own rules for the East China Sea Air Defense Identification Zone. So this is not a very good development from our perspective. Also, it mirrors what the Chinese are doing in the South China Sea by building a very long airstrip on some reefs, and that really means that China is trying to tighten its control over international water, both in the South China Sea and now the East China Sea.
Thaddeus, just 20 seconds. Does it seem right to you that China wants to be aggressive at this time of year? Is this the right moment? Is it because the president has shown weakness? 15 seconds, that is.
It's because they're communists and they're inveterate bad actors.
And they're at end of year. Do you read that they gain from this, Thaddeus?
I don't know. Did Mao celebrate Christmas? I don't think he cares.
No, he didn't. Liberty Risen is Thaddeus' new book. Gordon Chang of Forbes.com. We have two flags here of aggression, something aggressive happening in Asia towards the United States. I'm John Batchelor.